Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this joint press conference. I'm Secretary of State Elaine Marshall, and I want to welcome you all to the Secretary of State's office. I'm joined by my Council of State colleague, Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey. Also joining us is First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina, Dan Bubar, President and CEO of the United Way of North Carolina, Brittany Pruitt-Fletcher, and AARP State Director Michael Olander. Unfortunately, Attorney General Josh Stein was unable to join us today, but his office is represented by Deputy Attorney General Jasmine McGee. This coming Sunday, June 15th, marks World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which is such an important opportunity to raise awareness about a growing problem. We are here today to announce a special half-hour video that AARP North Carolina has produced on behalf of the North Carolina Senior Consumer Fraud Task Force. I was proud to join Commissioner Causey and Attorney General Stein in our virtual Scam Jam. A bit of background, and before I do that, I'm going off script and say I want to thank Tim Crawley and John Marin in particular, for his representation on the task force and all the work he does on this cause. A bit of background to the Senior Consumer Task Force emerged from a meeting at the Division of Aging offices out on the Dix campus in the fall of 1998. The kind of interagency cooperation that you see here today reflects the cross-section of agencies that came together for that meeting to bring their respective tools to helping seniors avoid scams. Now, former Deputy Attorney General David Kirkman was on a planned vacation in Peru when that meeting took place. He had no clue he was being elected as the task force initial co-chair, as he happily hiked in the Andes. So David, we're glad you're back and we're glad you did this. You can tell us about, what it's like to take a vacation later on. One of the task force's most effective forms of outreach has been an activity we call Scam Jam. These events are usually organized by AARP or the Area Agency on Aging and held at senior centers, churches, or convention centers. Scam Jam's been representatives from the Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General's office, the Department of Insurance, and law enforcement together for an in-depth anti-fraud presentation. By my office's account, we have participated in over 220 Scam Jams since 2006, reaching over 141 North Carolinians. I've had the honor of joining some of my Council of State colleagues in participation in many of these events. They're fun, and they are all centered on giving seniors the tools they need to avoid falling under the spell of a scam artist. While it's great to do these events in person to engage folks and answer their questions, it's also great that this virtual element has been added to make this content on demand. So we've collaborated on this virtual mini Scam Jam that will be available on AARP's YouTube channel. We already have senior centers around the state ready to screen this virtual Scam Jam. I hear some might be planning watch parties. I'm not sure what beverage they'll have with them, but anyway, I can't confirm that. I can't confirm either that they'll be making friendship bracelets with investor hotline numbers on it, but you never know. The point is to make this a communal experience and get everyone engaged in spotting, stopping, and reporting scams. Our state's investing public, that means calling our securities division investor hotline. I'm not even going to give out the number because there's other numbers in here, but we have a new tool, and it's 211. Stephanie and I and others, when we get asked these questions about where to go, we tell them there is no wrong door. The groups that participate in the Scam Jam all swap information back and forth. So now with this new 211, people don't have to know that's the right door to start with, and the rest of us are on the other side of it. With a call to a hotline, you can find out if the person promoting an investment opportunity is registered to sell securities in North Carolina, and just as importantly, if the investment opportunity itself is registered. I always encourage folks to check in with their friends and family. If you see a family member being influenced to make some sort of exotic financial investment with someone they didn't even know a few months ago, please don't be shy. Be a little bit nosy. Ask some questions. We also protect North Carolina's giving public at the Secretary of State's office. We're heading into what is predicted to be a very active hurricane season. Sadly, this means that communities could find themselves in the eye of the storm, facing major relief and recovery efforts, and the giving public could find itself in the crosshairs of scam artists. We need North Carolinians to keep a weather eye out for fake charity scams in the wake of these natural disasters. I want everyone who's able to give generously, but do your research up front and make sure your generosity is going to do the most good for those in need. If you suspect you've come across a fake charity, you can call our charitable solicitations hotline at 888-830-4989 or visit us at ncsos.gov to report it. And any of the other complaints would go to ncsos.gov. Another key number I want everybody to know is what I just spoke about, 211. I'm very excited to announce that the United Way of North Carolina, which operates the NC 211 Information and Referral Service, is collaborating with us. Now citizens in North Carolina can call 211 for information or because they suspect that they've been scammed, and they will get information on how and where to report those scams. This partnership will help get people across the state to the resources that they need, spot them, stop them, and report fraud more easily. I believe all of these efforts will make Governor Cooper's mandate to make North Carolina an age-friendly state a true reality. With that, I will turn the podium over to Insurance Commissioner Causey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Marshall, and I appreciate you hosting us in your headquarters here at the Secretary of State's office. I'm so happy to learn about the 211 number because we're always giving out so many toll-free numbers, people get confused, but with this 211, it's pretty easy to remember that one. Everybody knows 911, now we have 211. But insurance fraud is costing all of us. And this is a little trivia that some of you may not know, but the state of North Carolina was the first state in the United States to put fraud fighting in the Department of Insurance. They had law enforcement, and that was back in 1945. So the Criminal Investigations Division of the Department of Insurance has the claim to fame, the oldest in the nation when it comes to fraud fighting. I've attended a number of the scam jams across the state. I have Melinda and Kevin, and we have a good delegation from our SHIP program here. As you all know, the Seniors Health Insurance Program started under Commissioner Jim Long back in 1986, and we were one of the leaders in the nation. But fraud is costing all of us. Insurance fraud is very costly. We've seen a spike in all types of fraud, especially insurance fraud, over the past couple of years, especially since COVID. And in case you hadn't checked, our insurance premiums keep trying to rise. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's health insurance, homeowners, dwelling insurance, automobile insurance. There's a lot of pressure to constantly raise the premiums you're paying on insurance. And one of the drivers is fraud. We made a record number of arrests at the Department of Insurance in 2023, over 505 arrests for fraud. And we have attorneys that are prosecutors that work with our district attorneys to help. We prosecuted and found guilty over half of those last year. The other half are pending. But for every dollar that you spend to pay your insurance premiums, whether it's for your car insurance or your homeowners, for every dollar that you're paying out of your hard-earned money, about 20 cents is going just to cover the fraud. So I applaud all the agencies that are cracking down on fraud, aggressively going after fraud, because if we don't fight it, we're going to have more seniors and elderly abused. One of the biggest frauds that our criminal investigators have seen, and I imagine it's probably similar to the Attorney Generals and Secretary of States, are these online financial scams. They are targeting seniors that have annuities or savings accounts. You know, sometimes people say, well, I'm only making 1%, 2%. And you see somebody that says, hey, we can get you a 8, 9, 10% return, no risk, won't cost you anything. And they're very convincing. And if they ever get your phone number, your contact information, they call you on the phone, they're very persuasive. And what we've seen is many of our senior citizens take their life savings that's in an annuity or in a savings account, and they roll it over into these scam investments, and they lose everything. And they're so embarrassed that they don't tell their children, they don't tell their grandchildren, and if they're deaf, the family learns, well, I thought grandma had some money in the bank. Well, no, it's gone. So that's why we have to be on high alert for these. I mean, you name it, it's out there. You'll hear more, but it is so important that people, if they suspect, you don't have to know it's fraud. If you suspect fraud, report it. There's a number of state agencies that'll investigate. Our criminal investigators investigate. We have agents sworn as United States Marshals. We do Medicare fraud investigations. We even help, if requested, with Medicaid, Social Security fraud investigations. So people can go to the Department of Insurance website, ncdoi.gov, and get more information. But remember that 211 number. If you suspect fraud, report it, or any type of abuse needs to be reported. And I certainly thank AARP for all their support over the years to get this message out. So I now will yield to the U.S. Attorney Assistant.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, and it's good to be here on behalf of the U.S. Attorney's Office to highlight what is an increasing threat against our seniors. There couldn't be a more important topic from our perspective. According to the National Council on Aging, approximately 1 in 10 seniors has been a victim of elder fraud. That's a staggering number. What's even more staggering is the fact that the vast majority of cases against seniors and frauds against them go unreported. So there's a great many more than we even are seeing and hearing about. These numbers are only increasing. The FBI in 2022 put out a report that indicates there were over 88,000 victims nationwide, with a total of $3.1 billion of loss. That was an 84% increase from 2021. So again, these are old statistics, but the numbers continue to increase is what we're seeing. The average victim in these cases loses almost $40,000, and many lose much more, up to $100,000 or more. Combating elder fraud is one of the primary focuses of the United States Department of Justice. And we're here in the Eastern District of North Carolina to really do our part. In 2023, across the country, federal prosecutors brought both criminal and civil cases against over 700 defendants who collectively stole more than $1.5 billion, affecting 2.4 million elderly across the country. We're doing our part, but there's much, much more to be done. Locally, my office started the Elder Fraud Task Force here in the Eastern District of North Carolina. We meet with representatives from FBI, the IRS, Health and Human Services, and Secret Service. We do that twice a month to go over investigative leads, talk about our cases, deconflict resources to make sure we're targeting the right folks. And we do that so that we can bring meaningful cases against people who would target the elderly. This group also does the important work of doing community outreach programs like what we've been talking about. We do presentations on how to avoid victimization and how to increase that educational component, because what we want to do is avoid victimization altogether so we don't have to prosecute these individuals. The federal government can't do this alone. We very much appreciate all that's being done, what's being highlighted here today by our state and local partners. We want to join you in these efforts. We're working hard to prevent these crimes, but it takes this educational component, this prevention component, to really take root. We've been out across the community just even in today and in the last few days, both here in Raleigh and Wake Forest. We've got events planned next week in southeastern North Carolina because we too want to get out the word about stopping this victimization before it even starts. What can we do? Know the signs of scams and help our senior population know what they are. Keep their guard up. Put your nose in the business of your parents and your aunts and uncles and close friends so that you can see what they've got going on and you might raise the alarm of what that is. Help us spread the word. Get the message out there that if something seems too good to be true, if you're seeing those guaranteed returns, maybe it's not true and maybe we should take a second or third look and use the resources that are at our fingertips. More importantly, if you or someone that you know and love has been the target of a fraud or abuse, it can be embarrassing. But we want you to reach out. We want to partner with you. We want to hear from you. Both federal, state, and local law enforcement desperately wants this. Please come forward. File a report with the state. I will tell you that the FBI, you can go online to the FBI's website at the letter IC3, that's the number 3, ic3.gov. You can file a complaint on there because that'll also filter to our office and we'll work with our state partners to find where that complaint should go. And you can always call your local FBI office to report fraud. Really thank you for including us today. And now I will turn it over to my state colleague, Jasmine McGee, who's a Senior Deputy Attorney General. Thank you.
Thanks so much, First Assistant Buvar and Secretary Marshall, Commissioner Causey, for having us here today. My name is Jasmine McGee, Senior Deputy Attorney General and Director of the Consumer Protection Division at the North Carolina Attorney General's Office. Our Consumer Protection Division works to protect North Carolinians from scams and frauds. We alert people when there are new scams on the rise. We do outreach to community members so they have the tools to protect themselves, as well as tailored outreach to professionals who work with seniors so that they can help protect against scams. And we review complaints about scams and frauds to use the resources of our office to respond. With senior fraud cases in particular, our assistance is very hands-on and individualized. We work to educate victims and their families to prevent re-victimization, which is very common, and protect remaining assets. We alert financial institutions about scams, share information with federal law enforcement, and when we can, we try to get the money back. Let me share some numbers and themes with you. Last year alone, our office received nearly 500 complaints about elder fraud and scams. For the 5 worst scams, we received 278 complaints. And of these, almost half of those lost money. The total loss by these victims was over $7 million, with an average loss of almost $55,000. Though the complaints submitted to our office are just a small fraction of what the total must be, these dollar losses are alarming and suggest that North Carolina seniors may be especially at risk. For example, the FTC reports that in 2023, the median scam loss was just $500 a person. Most of these scams originate overseas. Once the money has been sent, it is almost impossible to recover. In addition to these scams, our office pays close attention and will bring enforcement action against businesses that prey on seniors, often through door-to-door solicitation. In 2023, we were able to recover or save victims from losing over $47,000 as a result of predatory practices like these. For example, there was an HVAC company that induced consumers to sign a lease for a new HVAC unit with the cost far exceeding the value of the unit. We were able to negotiate a buyout for these consumers where they were let out of the lease and paid a fair price for the unit that they then owned. I want to highlight some of the top scams that we see. Number 1, sweetheart scams. I'm sure many of you have heard about them, also known as friendship scams. The scammer befriends you online, particularly on LinkedIn or Facebook, and then they communicate with you through the messaging apps. They claim to live overseas, and then soon one of 2 things will happen. Number 1, they'll ask you to send money because they have some kind of financial crisis or hardship, and then they'll promise to visit you. Or 2, they will tell you that you can make money through some other nefarious way, cryptocurrency, something really complicated. In the former scenario, they keep inventing reasons why they need the money, and they never come visit. With crypto, you follow the scammer's directions on how to invest, and it looks like you've made a lot of money, but when you try to cash out, you're told you have to prepay a lot of fees in order to cash out. These scams are really devastating. We frequently see losses greater than $500,000. And as of late, we've even seen crypto recovery scams where the original scammers go after the victims to try to help them recover their money. So they doubly, again, victimize the people that they victimize in the first place. So if you don't know the person who contacts you, don't accept their request to connect. The scammer eventually disappears, never to be heard from again. Then we have sweepstakes scams. You receive a mailing saying you won the lottery, and then through subsequent communications by email, phone, or text, the scammer says you just need to prepay your tax liability on the winnings just to claim your prize. Sometimes the scammer also says you've won an expensive car and you have to prepay fees to get the car delivered. If you won the real lottery, you don't prepay your taxes on the winnings. I wish I had personal experience with that, but I do not. We have imposter scams. These run the gamut, including government agency, government official, banks. The scammer may pretend to be someone that you would trust and listen to. They try to intimidate you and demand money or else. They may say you're eligible for a government grant and you will be awarded grant funds if you prepay. Law enforcement and government officials can't call you and threaten you with arrest or a fine, and they should never demand payment. If you're uncertain, just don't respond immediately. Look up the agency's number, call them directly, and verify. Then we've got our tech support scams. A pop-up appears on your computer telling you something is wrong, or someone may call you or text you and say the same thing. That link appears to be from Microsoft or Apple or something legitimate, and that pop-up directs you to click on a link or call a number. And then once you get to that link, you end up giving the scammer access to your computer. They can steal money from your bank accounts, install malware, and obtain other personal information. Never click on a pop-up link. I know they're very frustrating when they come out of nowhere. If someone contacts you purporting to be from Microsoft or the like, don't speak to them. Look up the business, find the real number, and call that number. If your computer has been compromised, seek immediate help from a computer expert. Maybe your family member, maybe not, maybe a real expert. I know a lot of us talk to our family members and they seem like we're the computer experts, but we might not be. Then we've got grandparent scams. Scammers will start out by learning some information about a grandchild or a person they're going to pretend to be, maybe through social media. Don't share too much online, kids. They'll call you and pretend to be your grandchildren in need of help. They might be in trouble with the law, in jail, injured, kidnapped, something that really sounds like an emergency. And they'll probably ask to send money to help them out. And please don't tell mom or dad. These are especially tricky scams because they're starting to use artificial intelligence to sound like the voice of someone you love. So be skeptical when someone asks you for money. Take a pause to evaluate the situation. Contact your loved one directly at a number that you know is theirs to verify whether they're in trouble, or reach out to another family member to get their advice. So these are some of the top scams that we see, but these are scams that anyone can fall victim to. In fact, we see that senior victims are often independent and quite functional in their activities of daily living, yet they fall prey to some relatively simple scams. If you're not sure about something, you can always verify whether something is a reported scam with our office. Now, our phone staff gets about 4,000 calls a month, and so they probably want me to say 211. But I will tell you also that our phone number is 877-5-NO-SCAM. You can file a complaint with us on our website at ncdoj.gov/complaint, or call us at that number. And if you want to learn more about scams, you can download our senior scam guide also on our website, or reach out to our office about a outreach presentation. So thank you so much, and I will now turn it over to the United Way of North Carolina President and CEO, Brittany Pruitt-Fletcher.
Good afternoon. I'm Brittany Pruitt-Fletcher, the President and CEO with United Way of North Carolina. And United Way of North Carolina and NC211 are very proud to be partnering with the North Carolina Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General's office, the North Carolina Department of Insurance, and AARP to help individuals recognize and report fraud. For many, finding help and knowing who to call can be confusing. There's so many 800 numbers out there, you don't know what to do. And sometimes that prevents folks from making a report. And so we want to make sure that it is easy and that we can connect you to the right places. So today we're excited to announce that you can simply dial 211, and you will speak with a community resource specialist in our office that will help direct you to the appropriate place to find help. NC 211 is free, confidential, and available in all 100 counties across North Carolina. It's also available in multiple languages. We also have over 13,000 resources in our database related to all types of information that you may need. We also have a team that's verifying those resources to make sure the information that we're providing to you is accurate and reflective of the eligibility requirements that meet their criteria. You can also add your organization to our database by visiting nc211.org and clicking Add Your Agency on the main menu. You will complete a form to apply for inclusion into the database, and then you will receive verification from our team that your organization was added. We have been partnering with AARP to add all of the resources related to fraud, make sure that we have all of the most updated information. So again, the number, if you want to make a report, 211. And we're very excited to launch this partnership today and looking forward to serving individuals impacted by fraud or potentially impacted. I think that's a really important point to point out is you don't necessarily have to have experienced the fraud. If you suspect that, you can call 211 and we'll get you connected to the right folks. So again, thank you for having me here today.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Olandra, State Director for AARP North Carolina. I'm the last speaker. And I'm not going to, there was so much great information that was shared, I'm not going to be redundant and just kind of fill in a couple of things and emphasize a couple of things. First off, AARP is here with different agencies and organizations, as you can see, because this is a team effort. Fraud is never going to go away. There are always going to be criminals who are going to try to, cut to the front of the line and cheat other people out of what they've earned and what they're entitled to. And they're only going to get more creative and persistent as time goes on, especially with technology and AI and all other sorts of things coming down the road. And so we, in a way, are a microcosm. We're working together to the best of our ability to help educate people, so that there's some recourse, there's some opportunity for fraud to be identified and for them to be prosecuted. When it comes to prevention and education, though, it's also a team effort on the consumer's end. And, there's some real important keys that I want to emphasize here that are really, really important. It's been mentioned here before that you always want to be reporting in things when they happen, even if you're suspecting fraud. And that can be really hard for some people because they're embarrassed. They won't tell their children or their grandchildren, as the commissioner mentioned. We need to get much better at that. And that begins in a large part by not victim blaming. There's a reason why people, are embarrassed, and one of it oftentimes is they feel like people are going to think, gee, how could you have fallen for that? And we really need to get past that. We really need to appreciate how creative and convincing these criminals can be, especially with things like AI, and let people know, no, we need to focus on the people who did the wrong here, not the people who are victimized. We need to approach that with understanding and with patience. And those questions, how could you have fallen for that or something, are the last things we need to be thinking about, let alone saying, right? So we need to be out on the front line. We need to be proactive. We need to be educating people about why these things, what to be looking out for. And then again, if you even just suspect something, just being able to pick up the phone and call 211 now is a huge advancement here in North Carolina. It's going to make things so easy. With all these distractions that are out there, keeping things as simple as possible, remembering three numbers like that, is really, really going to be helpful. And it's going to aid AARP's work, too, as we're out in the community doing presentations, doing scam jams, doing virtual programming, 365 days a week. There are no days off with educating consumers because the people committing fraud never take off as well. So thank you all for being here again, and we're going to leave you with the video here. So thanks so much. Hi, I'm Mike Olandra, AARP North Carolina State Director.
Hello, I'm Mike Causey, and it's my honor to serve as the North Carolina Commissioner of Insurance.
I'm Josh Stein, your Attorney General.
And I'm Elaine Marshall, North Carolina Secretary of State. We're glad you're with us today.
One common scam that's going around today and has been for the last few years is the government imposter scam. This is where people pretend to be a government official or law enforcement officer to intimidate you and demand money. Sweetheart scammers usually start by befriending you online and reaching out through private messages, maybe on a dating site or Facebook or Instagram. Many times they claim to live overseas.
Fake prescription drugs being sold through rogue online pharmacies is an increasing concern. We teamed up with the Center for Safe Internet Pharmacies a few years ago to combat this problem with the Verify Before You Buy public awareness campaign. The center created its own search engine at verifybeforeyoubuy.org, where you can check to see if an online pharmacy is legitimately allowed to do business in the United States.
Did you know $68 billion were lost last year to Americans for Medicare fraud? There are many different types of Medicare fraud. For example, durable medical equipment, wheelchairs, walkers, urinary catheters. A certificate of medical necessity is the documentation from a doctor which Medicare requires before certain DME will be covered. Another popular scam is genetic testing. I'm sure many of you have received mailings, emails, phone calls offering genetic testing. Beware.
The Fraud Watch Network also features a Con Artist Playbook, part of the Fraud Watch Network Resource Center, with comprehensive information about the most common scams going around and what warning signs to look out for. ARP also has information specifically for veterans and military families, who are victimized more often than people not in the military and face unique threats and scams. And ARP North Carolina produces up-to-date Fraud Watch Minutes every month, short videos that educate and inform the public about specific crimes being committed against people in our state right now.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this program, and remember, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam.